The Subspace Emissary, that one game mode from Super Smash Bros. Brawl that was filled with amazing cutscenes, awesome boss fights, and the crazy exploration of the world, such as the plains, the jungle, and the swamp? Yeah, the atmosphere of Subspace is quite strange. Let's be real, the whole art direction and tone of Brawl is interesting. To start things off, the tone of Brawl is not so colorful, and it's going for a bit of a realistic look here. Mario and Luigi must have gone to a Home Depot or a Tractor Supply based on that premium denim they're rocking in this game. The jump from Melee to Brawl is quite jarring. Melee just had that old school 2000s feel to it, and it's always great to see how far gaming has come since then, and even before. It is fascinating though how somewhat fast gaming graphics had evolved from the early 2000s to the late 2000s. Sometimes I think maybe gaming graphics evolved too fast. Maybe technology has evolved too fast in general. Anyways, Brawl is a game that when you play it, you kinda get sucked back into the late 2000s just by the aesthetic alone. And that's what we're looking at today of Super Smash Bros. Brawl, but specifically more into Subspace Emissary. But first, let's take a quick look at the stages we battle on in this game. Brawl has 41 stages to battle on, 31 new and 10 old. As you can see, there's a big variety of stages in this game that dives into the character's world, such as Mario, Pokemon, and even Animal Crossing. It's kinda crazy that there was an Animal Crossing stage before Villager joined the roster. I'm just glad our boy's in the mix nowadays. But this game introduced a lot of personal favorite stages, such as Mario Circuit, Spear Pillar, Shadow Moses Island, and much more. And then you got stages like... The stages from the Super Smash Bros. Series have always been one of the most fun parts of playing these games. Looking at the evolution of Super Smash Bros. Is just incredible. How cool is it that nowadays we have Dragon Quest heroes in the same world as Ryu, Pokemon Trainer, and Minecraft Steve battling on a Final Fantasy stage. The amount of detail that goes into all the Smash Bros. Games is just legendary. Speaking of legendary, let's take a look at Spear Pillar. We got the legendary Pokemon Dialga and Palkia popping in with the vibrant lighting and night sky. And this is just my opinion, but I really dig the layout of the stage. It's very simple, just two platforms, but also has a lot going for it, especially with the backdrop and aesthetic. Let's take a look at Luigi's Mansion. Right away, it's noticeable that the mansion is scaled down a lot, from only having a few rooms and even the land around the mansion. It's literally just an empty void all around. Fits the spooky aesthetic perfectly though. The giant moon in the background is also just so cool to look at. The detail inside the mansion is very impressive too. The developers truly did their best to make everything look and feel similar to the original Luigi's Mansion game. This was also the first Smash game to introduce the build your own stage mode, which isn't the most customizable in this game, but these custom stages were always a blast to play on. As you can see, Brawl has a ton of art poured into it. From the characters, the stages, the final smashes, the amazing music, and especially the Subspace Emissary. When you think of Brawl, you most likely think of the Subspace Emissary. Subspace was Brawl's single-player / two-player big story mode, containing amazing cutscenes such as Ike using his great ether attack on the ancient minister, and of course, the cutscene with all the ships plus Kirby flying into the darkness. Also, this game introduced a ton of boss enemies, and my personal favorite, Rayquaza or Rayquaza. Surely pronouncing it whichever way will please everyone here, right? Tons of cool boss fights though. This mode is simply peak, considering the capabilities of the Nintendo Wii. But hold on a second. I'm here to talk specifically about Subspace Emissary's atmosphere, because it is quite a bit different from the main game itself. How strange it is, how boring and uninspiring it may be. I honestly think that the levels of Subspace are quite beautiful. The coloring, the lighting. Yeah, it may not be anything too special or unique, but it's just pretty cool that our characters are literally just out exploring. Some might say it's dreamlike. I sometimes feel like Subspace is its own game, since it just has such a different and more serious tone to it. As you go through Subspace, you quickly realize that all our favorite characters are in a realistic world, from fighting in a swamp to an abandoned castle to a plain old jungle. The environment in this mode sadly does not show off all these franchises' worlds. Instead, it seems like all the characters were just dropped on a certain part of Earth and were just destined to meet up and save the world. I think it's very strange to see Mario in a realistic setting. I think Odyssey saw Subspace and took it as a challenge to have New Donk City But yeah, what's the deal with Subspace taking place in a normal looking world? And we can't forget about the atmosphere of the cutscenes for this game. The immersive angles and even the low saturation going on with the characters and landscape definitely gives it that unique vibe. Later on in the series, we get Smash Run on Smash Bros for the 3DS, and it did a great job with bringing more Nintendo enemies throughout its gameplay. We don't get any cool side-scrolling levels, maybe one in Peach's Castle or a cool Star Fox level. That'd be so sick to see in a future Smash Bros game. Well, based on what I could find from the internet, I found an article named Iwata Ask, basically a series of interviews that the late Satoru Iwata would conduct and ask about games, hardware, developing, etc. There's definitely some cool stuff that can be found from these articles, such as one for this video's topic. In this article, Iwata is interviewing Masahiro Sakurai, the main man behind the Super Smash Bros. Series, about the development of Brawl's adventure mode, also known as Subspace. So looking through this article, you can see that Iwata is asking Sakurai a few questions about Subspace. As I was reading this article, it was very interesting to just kind of discover more about the planning of this project. Looking at this first part of the article, it seems Sakurai was simply trying to be realistic with his art direction on Subspace, not only with the world but also with the workload on the team. Having all of the characters' worlds combined may have been an overwhelming task. There's a couple more statements from this article that are very interesting to see. Again, looking through this article, Iwata asked if Sakurai thought about giving up the idea of making a story mode, and Sakurai responds with yes. But then Sakurai brings a storyline into this mode. So gathering what we can from the second section of the article, there is a lot to unravel here. It seems that Sakurai had taken inspiration from Melee's adventure mode, and he wanted to expand on the side-scrolling aspect, which definitely makes sense, considering that most of Melee's adventure mode is really just battling on stages and not so much exploring a whole unique level. It's also important to note that now Sakurai had seen the development of Brawl and Subspace differently. He wanted an actual story for the audience. He asked for help from Mr. Nojima-san to help with scenarios for the development of Subspace, but it seems that Sakurai knew that fitting an entire world with many franchises such as Mario and Pokemon may have been daunting. Now, I always enjoyed going through the Mushroom Kingdom, the Zelda Dungeon, and Big Blue while playing Melee's adventure mode because it felt like you were playing two games at once. Immersion is very important, not just with gaming but with other arts like music and film. Also, it's crazy to think that Subspace could have been something completely different with Mr. Nojima-san envisioning that some of the characters are on a bus heading to a stadium, with Samus and Donkey Kong being there with Snake watching the bus from afar. It's kind of funny to think about. I think the story for what we got from Subspace works well. Subspace has a more dark tone. Like I said, it's kind of like all characters got dropped on some random spot on Earth, like it was destined. Subspace is also unique for having some different choices to be made, so the replay value is definitely there. Pyramids. These are kind of the main enemies of Subspace, and there's different types of pyramids throughout the Subspace. They're basically an army from the darkness. This mode does feature many unique and new enemies while also having a couple of recognizable faces like Goombas, Koopas, and certain bosses like Petey. As we go through Subspace, there's a ton of great cutscenes, and then there's the gameplay. Side-scrolling beat-em-up levels. But this time, compared to Melee, it's taking place in a strange atmosphere, a lot different. There's no Mushroom Kingdom here, there's no Yoshi's Island here. These levels are all original. They are all very basic, simple terrain, simple backdrops, and simple names. There's nothing too captivating, but it works. Subspace is its own universe, the way I picture it. Because think about it like this, it is very strange to play as Captain Falcon while going through a random dark cave. There is a level that some of us may know though, Halberd, which comes from the Kirby series. There's a few levels where we are inside and or outside Halberd. There's even a boss battle on the outside against the boss Duon. So at least our characters did bring some aspects from their worlds. We do see a lot of characters' properties like ships, weapons, and most importantly, themselves. We are going through an adventure that none of our characters have gone through. We are in high stakes, and we are alone. When exploring Subspace, it feels empty. It's only our heroes and the villains. You can look back at the mountains, the forest, the jungle, and there's no one there. It's a bit unsettling. This mode does have that suspense with its unique story but also its atmosphere. The main villain of Subspace is Tabuu. Tabuu represents emptiness and nothingness, And many speculate that Tabuu is a child that grows up and loses that spark and imagination that they once had. Getting older can be difficult. We have to work hard to live. We have to sacrifice time and energy to work so that we can live. And a lot of people change when they grow up. I have changed a lot myself while growing up, and I'm sure you have too. As soon as we're not kids anymore, things become more serious and maybe even dull. Just like the atmosphere of subspace, surrounded by emptiness and enemies that lack personality, we may face that in life too, surrounded in a dull city with fake personalities. Yet, we keep going. We have to keep going. We have to keep exploring. Going through life is always better when you have true support by your side. Which is basically the reason all of us love Subspace, is because all of our favorite characters meet up and team up. Even bad guys like Bowser and Ganondorf realize that there's truly a bigger problem going on here. We see most of our characters get turned into trophies by Tabuu. It's like we get turned into trophies too in life. Those hard days after work, those lone car rides, experiencing something traumatic, staring off into the distance frozen like a statue, or a trophy I should say, feeling trapped by the burdens of being an adult. Subspace goes deep with its symbolism, whether all of it was truly intentional or not. The feeling of standing in subspace is even deeper than the void that is those faraway mountains, the big scary robots that feel nothing, and even Tabuu. But hold on. If you thought the monster-filled ruins and deserted plains fell off, we quickly realized just how much more danger our adventure has to offer. The subspace is where Tabuu resides. Darkness, emptiness, and nothingness. Luigi's probably thinking he'd rather be at a haunted mansion than this dark dimension. The subspace levels have a vibrant vibe to it. It is nice to see somewhere a little more unique in the story mode. Now we see all the areas we just explored combined into the Great Maze. The tedious part of Subspace. The Great Maze is a mashup of all the previous areas we explored, with some minor changes here and there. Again, everything in the Great Maze feels empty, and even more unsettling considering that we are literally in a dark void. There are certain segments in the Great Maze where we can see the actual subspace part creeping in. Tedious, but it is satisfying getting closer and closer to fighting Tabuu, especially after what he's done. After we enter the door to meet with Tabuu is about to turn everyone into trophies again, but the cool blue hedgehog, Sonic, comes through and destroys Tabuu's wings. When you're moving so fast and feeling confident like Sonic, you too can get through even the darkest of times in life. Save yourself and save others. While fighting on Tabuu's stage, it has an eerie, psychedelic atmosphere going on in the background mixed with Tabuu's striking attacks. It's a trippy battle as well as having good difficulty, especially for the characters with poor jumping and movement. After we beat Tabuu, we now see the ocean with a beautiful sunset awaiting us. Finally, the darkness is gone. Now there is light. Now there is peace. Now there is freedom. This mode encapsulates being an adult very well, I would say, almost like a documentary. This mode and story could be a whole anime or TV series. That's how immersive the Smash Bros series is in general. Like in Subspace, in life, you have many choices. Who do you want in your life? What path do you want to take? What battle are you facing? Now, even after beating Subspace, you can go back to the levels and there are still enemies because at the end of the day, it's a video game and it's a fighting game. There kind of has to be opponents. No matter what, future battles may come in life, but what matters is that we keep pushing through the tough times, because when we beat those tough times up, we feel great. We may even feel love for ourselves, for life, for our friends and family. The meaning of life is subjective, but the meaning of Subspace is objective. Fight on and life gets better. And even if life may not prove the way you wanted to, at least you have the faraway mountains, the slow moving water flow, and the endless sky of opportunities and imagination to look at. Now that we have reached the end of this video, I'd like to say thank you if you made it all the way here. Brawl is an amazing game and Subspace is an amazing mode. Even with all the flaws like tripping, it just never gets old. It's truly an epic adventure. But once again, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.